Hi, it's great to see you. Today we're going to be talking about fertilizing hydrangea. I should have fertilized my hydrangea last month in March, and here we are almost mid-April, but better late than never. So hydrangea are a little different than your other plants when you go to fertilize them. When you do your early spring fertilizing, you're really thinking of two different things. You're thinking of the color you want your hydrangea to be and the plant food that you're going to give them for your fertilizer. So let's talk about the color first. Here in New England, when you plant a hydrangea, we have very acidic soil. You are probably going to have a blue hydrangea. In other parts of the country, your soil is a little more alkaline. You may have a pink hydrangea. A lot of people choose to plant the hydrangea and then wait a year and see what color naturally comes up. That certainly is the easiest way to go, because if you like the natural color, you don't have to worry about adding anything to change it. Since I know I want some of mine to be pink, and they're not naturally going to be pink, I have to add a soil amendment to make the soil more alkaline. I end up adding garden lime. Now, this video isn't sponsored by any of these products. I'm just sharing with you what works for me and what I like. And I like that it shows me the pink flowers on this bag, so I know to add this lime to make my hydrangeas turn pink. And I sprinkle it along the drip edge, just work it into the soil a little bit, and hopefully my hydrangeas will be pink or on the purple side. That changes the color of those hydrangea, but they still need the regular fertilizer, the plant food, so that I get the beautiful blossoms. With the hydrangea that I'm going to turn pink, I'm going to add a general time-release fertilizer. So this is Osmocote. I sprinkle it around the drip edge also, and they call this a 14-14-14 fertilizer. So most fertilizers have those three numbers. I pay attention to the first two. So the first number tells me how much nitrogen it's going to release, and the second number tells me how much phosphorus it releases. Nitrogen really gives you green leafy plants, and phosphorus tends to help the flowers. So if you gave a fertilizer without the middle number, or a really low middle number, but a really high first number for nitrogen, you'd have some great looking green hydrangea. But because I really want those flowers, I make sure that I'm choosing a fertilizer that the middle number, the phosphorus, is at least as high as the nitrogen, maybe even higher, to get those beautiful blooms. So for my pink hydrangea, they're getting my garden lime for the color, the general Osmocote, so that they just bloom beautifully. For my blue hydrangea, I don't need to add anything to the soil to make them blue. They will look gorgeous and blue. I just need to give them some plant food, some of the fertilizer, and I like to use Hollytone. Hollytone is great for acidic loving plants. And so right here we have my hydrangea azaleas, some holly. Sprinkle this around your blue hydrangea along the drip line, work it in, and this will keep your hydrangea nice and happy. It will keep them blue if they are blue to begin with. Let's get started. We're going to go around the yard here and look at some of my hydrangea. Let's get them settled for the spring with either their food or their color changing and food amendments. So here we have an Endless Summer Original. They are really well known for blooming on last year's growth, so that will be these woody pieces here that are getting some nice growth on them, and from this year's growth. So down here I see some nice green starting, and we should have a nice long bloom season. And I do like my Endless Summer Blue. So I have my Hollytone. It says to do about a cup per foot along the drip line here. So hydrangea have pretty shallow roots. That's why we're not really digging this in. I can just sprinkle and sort of scratch it in. And this really should have some watering afterwards, which is fine. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, so I might wait for that. Okay, great. Now, under here, I have a new hydrangea from last year. I honestly don't know what color that the soil is naturally going to make it. Because I have this blue one right here and I'm using the holly tone on that anyway, I'm going to sprinkle a little around the outside here. I'm not taking the bucket off yet, so it won't be quite at the drip line, but it'll be close. And as you can see, oh, you might not be able to see, but I'll tell you, there is a chipmunk hole here. And last year, this hydrangea suffered. I think that the chipmunk might be winning the battle. So this one might be being moved this year. This hydrangea is beautiful. It was here when we moved in, so I can't take any credit for it, but I love it. It really blooms a purple. A deep purple. I don't know what kind it is. Because I like the way it is, I'm just going to use our regular time release fertilizer right along here. You might be wondering what the bucket is. A couple videos ago, I told you I had put some buckets over my hydrangea. And yes, in the backyard, I did that too. So underneath this bucket, there is a hydrangea. This is a Cityline Paris. Cityline Paris is one of the new releases that blooms on old and new wood, and it's pink. It's supposed to be pink pretty much no matter what you do. It'll be a deep pink down to maybe a little bit of a violet, but it wouldn't really turn blue even in acidic soil. I probably don't need to add lime, but because I really want it that nice deep pink, I am going to. The buckets help to protect these younger hydrangea that are small enough to fit underneath from the winter wind, which could kill some of the buds on the old growth. So I'm leaving the bucket on until probably May, but this will have to be close enough to give it a little food and a little lime before then. And then here comes my Osmocote. And you might be noticing that on the back of these packages, it gives you the exact measurements. I don't really do the exact measurements. I'm hoping it's close enough. I have two hydrangea here that I planted last year, one down here, one up here, and they are the same kind. These are both after midnight hydrangea, and they are supposed to be pretty hardy. One of their parents is Preziosa, which does really well. When I got them, they were blooming a really deep purple. Love it. I don't know how they'll do in this soil. I'm going to give them holly tone. From what I've read, they have a nice deep pink to a dark purple. I'm hoping to keep the dark purple this year. The after midnight hydrangea do bloom on old wood. I was hoping that since I planted them back here, sort of tucked away, that this would give them a little extra protection. I tried to cover them with the buckets. However, they were just too big and I was going to break branches. I couldn't do it. So they really have had full winter wear and all the wind, and we'll see how that works out. If you take a look at the very base of these hydrangea, you do see some new growth coming up here, and we have some nice growth coming off of last year's wood. I'm going to fertilize these hydrangeas that I have in bags that will later go into pots. bag in the pot. I do a lot of my hydrangeas, as we talked about when I was cleaning them up, in these bags. And a big reason for that is because I want them pink. And when I plant them in the bag, I use just a good Miracle-Gro potting soil. Potting soil is neutral in its pH, so it's not going to affect the color. When I put them in, I have a much greater chance then of being able to control that acidity to get the pink color that I really want. I'm assuming also that last year we probably used up most of the nutrients in that Miracle-Gro potting soil, so it's going to be important to give them a nice time-released fertilizer to keep them going through the summer. I'm going to start with my garden lime again. Now, we said we're supposed to put this on the drip line. The drip line is probably going to be off the pot here. So I'm just going to do the best I can and put some of this lime sort of along the outside of the bag. This particular hydrangea is called City Lime. This is City Line Venice. The City Line hydrangeas are a new batch that came out fairly recently, and they also are what they call the reblooming hydrangea. So it's going to bloom on this year's growth and last year's growth. You can see the buds coming up here, and then down the bottom you have some new growth here too. So City Line Venice had a lot of blossoms for me last year. It did really, really well. And I'm just sort of mixing this in. This particular hydrangea I got at the end of the season last year, and there is no tag in here, which is not like me. However, I do know that it is one of the Seaside Serenade hydrangeas, and I believe it's Martha's Vineyard. We'll have to see. I'll have to check my notebook when I get in. I keep a notebook of each year's purchases with a little note about where I plant things too. Even though I have all of my markers, inevitably some of those just disappear over the winter, or they get raked up or stepped on. So it's good to have that backup plan to remind you what you've planted. I always say that I'm going to remember what I planted, but it doesn't always work out that well. So this was a very deep pink, almost what they'd say is a red, and I want to keep it that way. So I've added my lime, I have added my time-release fertilizer. It looks good, and now I'll check in the notebook to see what kind it is.